Sean Hannity just put on a clinic at Fox News for how you're not supposed to do an interview in the press with someone who's charged with a crime. Now, normally you're supposed to challenge your guest, you're supposed to have a conversation with your guest and try to elicit information that people didn't know. What Sean Hannity did instead was he tried to help his guest make his case. Listen to this compilation that we put together, how much he leads George Zimmerman in an effort to help George Zimmerman. Watch.
Now, your gun was legal. You had a legal weapon in the state of Florida. Because they said, you know, can we meet you here at a certain location? You said, have them call me.
Yes.
Well, at that point, Trayvon is, all of a sudden you turned around and there he was.
Yes, sir. He asked me what my problem was.
Expletive problem.
Yes, sir.
And was that the punch in the nose that broke your nose?
Yes, sir.
You wanted to stop him from hitting your head on the cement.
Yes, sir. He started slamming my head into the concrete.
Which is where the lacerations came from.
Yes, sir.
How many times would you estimate that he punched you?
Several. More than a dozen.
And hitting you hard. And you said to the police at one point that he put his hand over your mouth. Do you think that was to silence you from screaming?
Yes, sir.
Are you that confident that you had a right to do this?
It's
to defend yourself.
Yes, sir.
My God. Okay, now, George Zimmerman, let me try to help you. I mean, Trayvon was the bad guy, right? I mean, he punched you so many times, right? He used curse words at you, didn't he? Yeah, all right, I hear you, George. Yeah, that's such a good case, George. My God, this is beyond just having an opinion and doing an opinion show. I've never seen anything like this in my life. But you know what? As much as Hannity tried to help Zimmerman, it didn't work. Because look at these obvious lies by Zimmerman.
You said that all of a sudden you found somebody who looked suspicious, he may be on drugs. That was one of the earlier comments that you made in that 911 call. What made you think he was suspicious, and what made you think that he might be on drugs?
I felt he was suspicious because it was raining. He was in between houses, cutting in between houses, and he was walking very leisurely for the weather.
Are you kidding me? Walking leisurely gets you shot these days? What a horrible excuse. I thought he was suspicious because it was raining. Okay, if he had run, you would have said he was suspicious. He walks leisurely, you say he's suspicious. Oh, this was a terrible mistake to let him go on air like this. This guy's obviously not very bright to begin with, but his excuses are so sad and pathetic. Look at the next one.
Then we get to the issue where you said on the 911 call that he's running, that maybe he was afraid of you, didn't know who you are.
No.
You don't think that? Why do you think that he was running then?
Maybe I said running, but he was more.
You said he was running.
Yes, he was like skipping, going away quickly, but he wasn't running out of fear.
These are the world's worst lies. He was skipping? He was skipping. I know, the defense told you, hey, listen, if it seems like he's running away from you, then you're not going to have a good self-defense case. So let's make up that he was skipping? No, look, before I was angry at the cops because they should have arrested this guy. Now, you leave it up to the trial to see what's going to happen. If he hadn't testified, he might have gotten away with it. And I don't know if he plans to testify in court, but now they can show this in court. Which jury looks at that and believes this guy? But then Hannity's not done. He's got to pour more salt into the national wounds. So that's about Zimmerman and Trayvon. Now he's going to turn it around and talk more about race. And let's try to figure out who he thinks is at fault here.
Spike Lee is tweeting out what he thinks is your home address. The Reverend Al Sharpton and NBC News, tries to use this case to bring up the issue of racial profiling. What do you say to Spike Lee, who didn't know the facts of the case, they hadn't been revealed? What do you say to Al Sharpton and those that rushed to judgment? What do you think their motives were?
I can't guess to what their motives are. I would just ask for an apology. I mean, if I did something that was wrong, I would apologize.
No, 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 no. You wouldn't. You didn't apologize for months after you shot an unarmed teenager in the chest and killed him. Now you're going to come out here and tell me you'd apologize? And then, what, you're the victim? Now George Zimmerman's the victim, and who's at fault? Oh, Spike Lee and Al Sharpton. Can I see a pattern there? I'm not quite sure. God, this is disgusting. And then there was accusations that Sean Hannity might have paid for or offered to pay for Zimmerman's defense. In fact, we talked about it on this show because there was very good evidence of it. So, of course, Hannity uses this interview to make it about himself and ask about that issue as well.
We did have conversations. You and I was asking you about the case.
Yes, sir.
I was asking you for an interview.
Yes, sir.
There was a report suggesting that I offered to pay your legal fees.
Never happened.
Never happened. And I was asking you for an interview.
Hey, first of all, don't laugh during this interview, okay? You're talking about a kid that got shot. Don't laugh. Second of all, Sharpton guilty, Spike Lee guilty, all those guys guilty. Sean Hannity innocent, of course. But we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet. Now, do you regret anything you did? Look, get a load of this loathsome answer.
Is there anything you regret? Do you regret getting out of the car to follow Trayvon that night?
No, sir.
Do you regret that you had a gun that night?
No, sir.
Do you feel you wouldn't be here for this interview if you didn't have that gun?
No, sir.
You feel you would not be here?
I feel that it was all God's plan, and for me to second guess it or judge it.
So it's not his fault, it's Sharpton's fault, it's Trayvon's fault, and now it's God's fault. It was God's plan that he shot and killed it. No, it was your fault. You're the one who chased him. You're the one who killed him. God, that was disgusting, man. You don't regret any of it? Why don't you just say, hey, you know what? I should have stayed at home. I should have stayed at home. I'm sorry. But no, he doesn't regret any of it because apparently he was God's executioner. Now I know exactly how I feel about George Zimmerman. All right, Linda Kenny Bodden is is an attorney that does civil and criminal defense. She's a former criminal prosecutor. Linda's been on the program many times to talk about this case. And Linda, first thing I want to ask you about is why the defense did this, right? And and this morning during the production meeting here, as we were talking about the show, I said, look, these guys, this is terrible for their defense, but they're going to raise a lot of money. I wonder if it was financial interest and if that's a conflict of interest. And then Mark O'Mara came out later today and admitted it. Watch this. Oh, okay, we don't have it, but he did. The attorney came out.
I believe you, Jack. He did. I read it.
He said, here, let me read you the quote.
Media.
He said the timing was not the best, but quite honestly, it was out of need and necessity. The Family and Defense Fund is basically broke, okay? So he's admitting right there, yeah, we did it for the money. Isn't that a huge conflict of interest for the attorney who's supposed to be representing his client?
It's amazing. I don't understand it. Of course it is. If you give advice to your client who is charged with murder, not driving while intoxicated, to go on national media because you're broke and because if you get money in the defense fund, maybe you'll get paid, that is, of course, a conflict of interest. I don't care what you think about George Zimmerman. I obviously think he's guilty of a crime. Other people do not. But I do believe people should at least have some semblance of good representation. This is like a disaster. We talked last week about the bail hearing, and now we have this. I don't understand it, and somebody is going to wise up eventually and file some charges, I think, here.
Because the money that is raised goes directly to the lawyers. So even whether they win or lose, they get paid. So they benefit from this interview, but their client doesn't necessarily benefit because he looked like an idiot in that, honestly. Now, and have you ever seen a defense attorney do as good a job of leading a witness as Sean Hannity did with Zimmerman there?
Well, I actually like some of Sean's questions, actually, because he did ask him what happened during that minute. And Zimmerman, hum. It was the prosecutors had to be sitting home. They must have had a party last night because this was such a great piece of evidence for the prosecution. And then today, Junk, they added to it because the defense had set up an interview with Barbara Walters, not a lightweight in the TV and media, to try to get George Zimmerman's side. And she walked out of the interview because they demanded some type of payment through hotel rooms to give the interview. Wait a second. I think people are getting their law degrees out of Cracker Jack boxes, and this defendant, he better pack his toothbrush because this is not good. One more question for you, Linda. Can the prosecutors get these tapes? This is the edited version. This is the version that makes Zimmerman look the best, if you can believe it. Can they get the unedited tapes from Fox News? Interesting question. If they exist, they may be able to get them if the Shield law doesn't protect them. But I bet you they do not exist. And let me tell you one other thing. This defense attorney had to be smart enough at least to say, look, I'll do the interview if you get rid of the takes. And a little birdie tells me they don't exist anymore. Because can you imagine what the outtakes are like?
That's really interesting. So you think they might have burned the tapes already?
I think they're gone. Show me the money. Don't show me the tapes.
Wow. Really interesting. All right, Linda Kenny Bodden, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
really
Jen.
appreciate it.